Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's your boy Ben from JBM Sports Media coming at you guys with another NBA video here today. Technically, this is going to be like part 2 of the tanking video I previously did because there's been more stuff that has come out now regarding solutions to tanking. So it looks like Adam Silver may have seen a lot of the feedback slash backlash that teams have been getting due to tanking. And he's come out with some solutions that we're going to talk about right here, right now. So before we do get into it, make sure you subscribe here to JBM Sports Media on YouTube. But check this out. NBA plans to enact anti-tanking rules for next season via ESPN. And yes, when I saw this headline, I was like, all right, finally, we're getting some groundwork done here because obviously, like I had previously mentioned, NBA's biggest issue right now currently is tanking. And I don't think there's no denying that. That and load management has become the biggest two issues with the NBA right now. So when I saw this, I was like, all right, let me see some proposals. Let me see what y'all got. And we did get some proposals. So in this video, we're going to get into these proposals. As always, I want to hear what you guys have to say. Leave it in the comment section because we're about to see if the NBA cooked with these proposals or not. And we're going to get into it as well. So multiple sources with knowledge of Thursday's GM meeting as well as late as January competition committee. So check this out. Basically, they had a meeting with all 30 owners, or all 30 GMs, should I say, and they told them straight up, we're going to crack down on this, and we're going to do this next season immediately because they see what's happening right now, and we're going to get into a little bit what some of the teams have been doing straight off the All-Star break, and I'm talking about these tanking teams like the Kings, like the Pacers, like the Jazz and Grizzlies yesterday, to be exact. And the following concepts have been discussed to curb tanking. So yes, we are finally getting ideas and possible solutions to finally curb tanking. And obviously, this is always a great thing. So first one that was thrown out there is first round picks can be protected only top 4 or top 14. Basically, I think this would be mainly like it can be top 3 protected, it can be top 8 protected, which I don't mind that. Will it be like a major helping point when it comes to stopping the tanking teams? I don't know. I don't know if it will be a major. I don't know if a lot of teams that automatically start taking when their team is really bad will stop because of a rule like this. Yes, I understand it because it's very specific, either top 4 or top 14. There's no top 3. There's no like top 8, like the Jazz, for example. I think it's very specific, but I just don't know if it would do enough to curb tanking, specifically this rule. Obviously, what would you guys think about that rule? First round picks can only be protected by top 4 or top 14. So the next one we have right here is lottery odds freeze at the trade deadline or a later date. That's a super interesting one. I think that one could be looked at either way. It could be looked at as good or it could be looked at as bad. One thing I will say is if the lottery odds do freeze by the trade deadline, it allows the young players to not get rest. Like, for example, obviously we know that Alex Sarr is out for 2 weeks for the Wizards. He could play. He's out due to an injury, but I mean, there's always a little bit of allegedly skepticism. So they can play in March and play freely because if the lottery odds do freeze at the trade deadline or maybe a little bit after the trade deadline, that could be a thing where the young stars actually don't have to sit out, get rest questionably. And with this load management shit, we could see these, I would say, above average players and young rookies start playing in March games. So I think that would be actually really interesting. Would it obviously curb tanking, necessarily speaking? I think it would be a very fascinating option because if the lottery odds do freeze at the trade deadline or maybe a little bit after the trade deadline, then these tanking teams in March technically would have to play their talent to an extent. That would be super interesting. That would be super interesting. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I'm not the biggest fan of it as well, if that makes sense. The next one we have right here is no longer allowing a team to pick top 4 in consecutive years or after consecutive bottom 3 finishes. See, this is where I actually like. I like this. I like this. No longer allowing a team to pick in the top 4 in consecutive years. I think that would bring obviously a little bit of variety. If, for example, if a team is consistently finishing in the bottom 3, I think at some point you have to say, yeah, you're going to have to lose your privilege in picking in the top 4. You're going to have to lose your privilege because there's no way you're still this bad. Obviously, at some point they would have to spend in free agency. That goes into a factor as well, maybe making some trades. But if you see a team consistently being bad, like for example, you look at all the teams recently that have been consistently being bad, like the Wizards, for example. I would say obviously the Nets since KD left. I mean, yeah, they consistently being bad, and that's one thing. I think that would be a great measure right there because if you do allow that to happen, then teams, well, I say maybe be incentivized to make maybe more moves in free agency or maybe via trade as well. So I actually, out of all the ones that we've read so far, the first round picks can be protected only top 4, top 14, and lottery odds freeze at the trade deadline. I think this one, no longer allowing a team to pick in the top 4 in consecutive years or after consecutive bottom 3 finishes, is my favorite so far. I will say that. I think it makes sense to obviously incentivize teams like, yo, at some point you have to make moves other than the draft, and I think that's obviously the truth. So next one we have right here is teams can't pick top 4 the year after making a conference finals. By the way, guys, even reading that, you know who's a shot at, and we're going to talk about the team later, but that's a shout out to obvious team in the Eastern Conference. I mean, I guess like, does it really, like, that's not going to curb tanking though. That isn't going to curb tanking. That's a specific obviously team I think they're mentioning right here when they put out this statement, which is really funny to be honest. But actually, you know what, before we get into the other ones, y'all want to know what team they're talking about? I'll show you guys right now. They're talking about the Indiana Pacers, because after that statement was released a few days ago, they basically gave the big F to like everything that the NBA is trying to propose when it comes to tanking. Look at their injury report for tonight's or yesterday's game in Washington, D.C. They had Halliburton out, obviously, Obi Toppin, Johnny Furphy, Zubac, Pascal Siakam, left hamstring injury management, but he played in the All-Star game. Oops, I guess I wasn't supposed to say that. Aaron Nesmith, Andrew Nembhard, doubtful. TJ McConnell did play. Like, I mean, man, I'll say this. This is that specifically, that solution was a direct shot of the Indiana Pacers because, bro, look at this. This is tanking at its finest. What you're looking at right here is tanking at its absolute finest. Honestly, low key, it kind of makes me sick. It really does kind of make me sick. I don't feel like this is the way teams should be operating. I think it's low key a little bit iffy. I mean, not iffy. I just don't want to say the exact word, but I think it's truly bottom tier. It's really bottom tier. But that one right there, teams can't pick in the top 4 after making conference finals. That's obviously a shot at the Indiana Pacers. The next one we have right here is lottery odds allocated based on 2-year records. So that would be super interesting. So you take a team like the Wizards, for example, who have been pretty much shit, and you allocate their lottery odds over the 2-year spans, obviously them being shit for a good amount of time, then that could make it a little bit more interesting. I just, like I said, will it necessarily curb tanking? Maybe a team like the Kings as well. I'll say that. Will that necessarily help the teams like the Kings, the Jazz, the Wizards curb tanking? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that one in the comment section. I actually would like to hear your guys' thoughts real quick. I'll say this about the Kings. Talk about the tanking and everything like that. Yesterday it came out that Sacramento Kings forward DeAndre Hunter will undergo season-ending eye surgery. They lost LaVine to season-ending surgery with his, I believe it was finger, and it's a bonus with the torn meniscus injury surgery, season-ending surgery. And now DeAndre Hunter will undergo season-ending eye surgery. So it looks like the Kings are basically saying, and like I said, don't be surprised if DeRozan starts sitting out games in March, because at that point, it's obviously going to happen. I feel like teams like that, bro, really don't deserve to have the number 1 overall pick. And they are, like, right now in lottery odds, they're supposed to have the number 1 overall pick. Hopefully a team jumps over them. That shit's disgusting, bro. I mean, not saying them going the surgery route. Maybe they are truly hurt, but even them sitting out some players, it's just like, man, come on, bro. I think it's just a little bit too much. A little bit too much. Same thing with the Pacers. Same thing with the Grizzlies and the Jazz yesterday. Lauri Markkanen sat because of what? Like, come on, bro. It's cooked. Next one, we have lottery extended to include all play-in teams. Teams like the Bulls, teams like the Hawks saw that one, and they started foaming from them out. They started loving that shit right off the bat. Teams like even you could say play-in teams in like possibly the Western Conference, like the Trailblazers, maybe even I guess you could say the Suns, or I don't know, teams like that. Maybe obviously the Miami Heat as well. They started looking at that and they started foaming from the mouth. They obviously love something like that. And I think, I mean, it's not a crazy bad idea. But teams like the Bulls, like for example, the Bulls front office probably saw something like that and they were like, lottery extended to include all playing teams. Please, please, please do this. That's probably what they thought immediately. So I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of it, to be honest. I think out of all the ones, obviously I'll read the last one. Actually, matter of fact, let's get into that real quick. Last one that they put out is flatten odds for all lottery teams. Okay. So I low-key don't mind it. Flattening the odds for all lottery teams. I think that could be super interesting. Will that curb tanking? I think it could necessarily help with it. I don't think it'll curb it to the max, but out of all the ones, I think that one and no longer allowing a team to pick in the top 4 in consecutive years or after consecutive bottom 3 finishes will be the most helpful ones. If I had to pick one, though, that I would absolutely love and I think should be implemented, it's no longer allowing a team to pick in the top 4 in consecutive years or after consecutive bottom 3 finishes. I think that is the one that they should go with. I think all the GMs even would understand to an extent why they would go with one like this. I gave Adam Silver a little bit of crap in my last video, but for coming up with some of these solutions, I don't actually mind that. I'll tip my cap out to him. I think some of these were decent. And if they are going to go with one, hopefully they go with the one we just talked about. Obviously, I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section. Which solution do you think the NBA should go with? Let me know in the comment section. And obviously, subscribe here to JBM Sports Media. We've been killing it with content. Thank you guys so much for continuing to show us a lot of support. Continue, like I said, subscribe, hit that like button, follow us on IG and TikTok at JBM Sports Media. Until the next time, we'll see you guys later. Peace.